This video is a refresh of a video I made a couple of years ago about how to use RF jamming to protect commercial ships against guided missile attack, RF guided missile attack, and drone attack. And that earlier video from 2024 was prompted by work I did with another company, ostensibly aimed at a country in the region to protect oil tankers and container ships, specifically through the Strait of Hormuz and all that. Although that project didn't go forward, we made a lot of progress. So I want to refresh that video right now. So because it has become very topical. The Strait of Hormuz is shut, it's open, it's shut, it's open. So right now we can use military ships, and sometimes they are used to protect commercial ships. But this is done by using onboard Gatling guns to shoot down and physically destroy the missile or drone, or by anti-missile missiles. But that solution is not sustainable. For one thing, it's very expensive, and second of all, eventually the bullets and the anti-missile missiles have to be refreshed. That means the military ship has to go away, be resupplied, and come back. And it's not a long-term solution. But I think that particular genie is out of the bottle now. It's not going back in, that commercial ships are useful targets. So we have to ask ourselves, what can the owners and operators of commercial ships do to protect themselves so they don't rely on the military? Well, one thing they can't do is kit up their ships with military technology, because that technology is not for sale to private industry. It's controlled by end user license agreements, and so it's just not an option. But would it be possible, is it possible to use an RF jamming solution which comprise military-like technology to protect commercial ships? And if so, what would that look like? An RF jamming solution might not be a complete solution. It might be a partial solution. It might be a kind of thing that commercial ship owners and operators would like to have, should have, on board, even when the Strait of Hormuz is open, just in case someone fires a missile or a drone, like an insurance policy. So how might that look? Well, imagine an ISO container fitted with prime power and cooling, and there's a jammer in there and antennas that poke out the top. And the ISO container is set down without any deck penetration on a commercial ship deck, like on a container ship or a oil tanker or whatever. And you turn the jammer on, hit the big green button, it's fully automatic. And as the ship steams through the problem area, then the jammer is listening for the signature, the RF signature of an inbound missile. And if it detects something, it takes steps to send the missile in the wrong direction. That's the idea. This is a simulated engagement between an anti-ship missile and an oil tanker. The application is called Engage. I wrote it over the past 24 years, and it has been proven correct multiple times by comparing its predictions with the results from trials involving real missile seekers. Now, this is a temporary installation on board a commercial ship, by the way. We don't need every commercial ship to have a jammer on board all the time. It only needs one while it's going through a region where there might be a missile attack. And when it gets to the other side, we use a crane to lift the ISO container off the ship and put it on the deck of another ship heading in the opposite direction. That's the concept. Now, there are jammers available right now that could, in principle, be used to protect commercial ships, but there's a catch. The user has to program the jammer. The jammers don't come with jam programs. So that requires specialist work, and it depends on classified information, which is owned by governments. So it's not transferable to private industry. So the commercially available jammers right now, unless you can program it, it's useless. But what if there was a different approach? What if the jammer came programmed with a rule set, a behavioral rule set, instead of a bunch of classified parameters? A different approach, a new approach. Well, that can be done right now with existing proven technology, and I'd like to take the next couple of minutes to explain how that could be done. For anyone who's interested in the technical details of jamming radar homing missiles, it's necessary to understand the relationship between angle deception countermeasures and range deception countermeasures, because it's essential to have both. And there's a video link in the description below that shows a video about that, the history of onboard and offboard countermeasures. Now, onboard range deception countermeasures are well handled right now by several manufacturers of digital RF memory or DRIFM jammers, so that's no problem. Now, but it is essential to have the angle deception piece also, otherwise the missile will fly through the ship. And I made a video about that. Here's a link, and I'll post the link in the description below. So when it comes to onboard angle deception countermeasures, there are very few options to peel a monopulse seeker off its target once the target has been acquired. But they have one thing in common. All the techniques that work attack the electromagnetic properties of the seeker antenna. So the angle tracking function of the seeker is damaged before the sophisticated signal processing even starts. And a good option for onboard angle deception countermeasure is cross-polarization jamming or cross-pol jamming, but it has to be done cognitively to work. The fastest and least expensive way to field a missile jammer for commercial ships is to make one modification to an existing military jammer. Add a cognitive controller. The controller is a software module which coordinates angle deception like cross-pol jamming and the jammer's RF transmitter. Now this modification changes two things. Change number one, for the first time ever, there is a real-time effectiveness feedback loop so the jammer is able to confirm that it is deflecting the missile into an unrecoverable heading error. That's the definition of soft kill, a missile that is so far off course that it can't turn hard enough to correct the error and hit the target. A missile in this condition is still in the air, but it's harmless. Change number two, and probably the more important of the two, there is no need to use a classified government-owned database to figure out what countermeasure to use. If one's available, great, but it's not necessary. You don't program this jammer, it comes ready to switch on. The jammer customizes its actions to the evolving missile attack, but it doesn't care what kind of missile has been fired. Now, there is a cognitive controller called Invicta, created by Sky Industries, which has been tested against real missile seekers, but it's not yet in service. And here's a link to a description of it. The Invicta controller has been successfully integrated with the iRoots digital RF memory jammer produced by MC Countermeasures. Now, this was an internally funded demonstration project, and it's relevant because iRoots is in service with the Canadian Navy in the Ramses BL-2 jammer as part of a $94.6 million technology refresh, as reported in the Journal of Electronic Defense a few years ago. Now, according to a somewhat obscure article in Ottawa Valley News, BL-2 has been containerized. I have no knowledge of this project other than the article and the photograph that accompanies it. Now, arguably the fastest route to field a jammer for commercial ships would be to apply the software upgrade, the controller, to a containerized BL-2 jammer and confirm again that it works against real missile seekers, then build and commission a second copy. Then use the original containerized system as a test bed for additional confirmation tests and the inevitable improvements that will accrue to the iRoots Invicta cognitive core. Alternatively, the Invicta controller could be fit to Scorpion 2, which is produced by Thales, or the Raven jammer produced by Lockheed Martin Canada. Both are cross-pol jammers. In conclusion, using anti-ship missiles to take pot shots at commercial ships will upend the shipping industry, and that is the tip of a very big iceberg. But an anti-ship missile, that's a different situation. For example, the old Soviet Cold War era SSN-2s, I mean, that's a small airplane. That will punch a significant hole in a container ship or a tanker. So those things can do real damage. And bad actors have realized that they have a new avenue for what is essentially terrorist bombing. And that's to use these anti-ship missiles, by which they can exert real influence over powerful countries. Now, if they can get a hold of $1 million missile, they can sink or cripple a $200 million ship and then simultaneously tie up $1 billion military and disrupt a $1 trillion economy. And as sure as God made little green apples, the voting public will blame their elected officials as soon as the prices start to go up because the shipping routes have changed. Right or wrong, they'll do it. I want to add a short piece here that I wasn't aware of when I made this original video back in 2024, and it has to do with the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf. So at that time in 2024, the Houthis had essentially stopped shipping in the Red Sea by capping off missiles and drones supplied by Iran. And that meant that the ships had to travel a much longer route. They had to leave the Mediterranean and travel around the bottom of Africa and to get into the South Pacific and in the reverse direction as well. And you might think that that's what a terrible situation for shipping, but that's not the case. Actually, it's fantastic news for the shipping business because they charge by the mile, and so do the insurance companies. So when a short route gets shut off, that is fantastic news. Google shipping company profits around that time. What happened to them? They went up by, like, was it 300% or something? So, but somebody always pays, and in the end, it's the consumer. So that's a factor. In the Persian Gulf, it's a different situation. There's only one route in and out, and it's past the shooting gallery of the Strait of Hormuz. So that's a different situation. And in that situation, and also to a certain extent in the Red Sea, militaries are required, at least in the short term, to provide protection, consort protection for commercial ships. Otherwise, everything stops. But it's not a long-term solution. Neither of these is a long-term solution. Something else has to be done, and this is it. The trouble is, the device, as described in this video, does not exist at present, but it could. Now, I and several colleagues have, after 20 years of silent, successful work, brought the technology to the 1-yard line. There is no more technical risk here. It's over, it's done, it's been handled. So the next thing that happened is that the core technology has to be licensed and developed and productized and brought to market by a large company. And that means creating the first article system and putting production contracts in place with suppliers, and then selling and commissioning and maintaining and servicing the first ever jammer for a commercial ship. There's nothing like it on the market. It's completely open at present. We're talking about a system that doesn't have to be programmed. It already comes ready to go. There's a little bit of artificial intelligence in there, and it's based on rule sets instead of fixed parameters. So it's a different approach. And I think, frankly, the spin-offs might be bigger than the jammer.